Can love really survive in today's world? I wanted to find out why most relationships are failing, and I found 5 bad habits that are causing breakup numbers to skyrocket. Listen closely because understanding these habits may lead you to understand why your ex dumped you, help you prevent future breakups, or they may even help you reconcile with your ex should the opportunity present itself. If your romantic relationships always end in heartbreak, it's not just bad luck or because your ex is a class A dickhead. The truth is, without the right skills, any romantic relationship you get into is being set up for failure from the beginning. In this video, you're going to learn what successful couples are getting right. You'll learn the 5 biggest reasons why relationships fall apart. After coaching nearly 1,000 dumpies through their breakups over Zoom calls, some interesting patterns emerge that cannot be ignored. I am going to break down the habits behind the 5 biggest reasons why relationships are failing. Habits you may not even realize you have. By the end, you'll know exactly what's been going wrong and how to fix it. My name is Nick, and this is The Love Fix. If you need more help than this video can provide, there are links in the description to my one-to-one coaching services and my new book, Breaking Up with Your Breakup, a counterintuitive remedy for heartbreak. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Have you ever wondered why most relationships fall apart out of nowhere, no matter how much effort you put in? You might think it's something big, but often it's the small habits we don't even notice that destroy relationships from the inside out. The truth is, relationships don't just fall apart. Something happened weeks, months, or even years ago that caused the breakup, and it compounded from there. The breakup was quite literally a symptom of a bigger problem. Bad habit number 1: prioritizing chemistry over compatibility. It's easy to get swept up in chemistry, those butterflies, the spark, the excitement, and while chemistry is important, prioritizing it over compatibility is one of the biggest hidden relationship destroyers. Think about it, you meet someone and the chemistry is off the charts, but over time you realize your values, goals, or even communication styles don't align. The chemistry fades and suddenly you're stuck with someone you're not truly compatible with. Many of the one-to-one breakup recovery coaching sessions I conduct over Zoom calls start with, "We had an amazing connection in the beginning." That's the chemistry. Chemistry is a short-term high, while compatibility is the foundation of a long-term relationship. Most people sadly skew chemistry and compatibility with a ratio of 90% chemistry and 10% compatibility. But what I've seen in long-term successful relationships, they have a ratio that has a bigger focus on compatibility, with a ratio of around 70% compatibility and 30% chemistry. Focusing on the initial chemistry and using it as a barometer to determine long-term compatibility can blind you to the red flags that are right in front of you. Don't worry, we'll look at the differences between compatibility and chemistry shortly. If on the first date you're like, "Oh my god, this is the one," you are either lonely or you may be bonding over trauma. Loneliness can lead us to do crazy things like ignoring the red flags. Trauma can also lead us to do crazy shit like ignoring the red flags. When that happens, people don't fall in love with the person per se. They fall in love with the initial excitement and experience of the first date. They will hold on to the feeling for years, hoping it will sustain the relationship, and they will say something like, "We had such an amazing connection in the beginning. What happened to us?" Rather than assessing how great someone makes you feel during the first few dates, you should be assessing their behaviors. Are they curious about you? Or are they more interested in talking about themselves and how great they are? I am sure most of us have been on those dates where the person sitting across from us just won't shut the fuck up about how many countries they've been to. Instead, do they have a childlike curiosity about you regarding the deeper levels of who you are? Are they listening to understand rather than to respond? How do they treat others? Are they polite to the waitstaff at the restaurant? Can they disagree with you without getting butthurt? A pet hate of mine is actions not aligning with words. If their actions are not aligning with their words during the honeymoon period, that only compounds and gets worse over time. Remember, people are as polite as they are ever going to be during the first few dates, so you must pay attention to their actions over your chemical emotions and ignore the list of qualities you think you want in them that you got from some stupid fucking TikToker. One thing I've always done with my partner: if I say I'll meet her at 6 p.m, I'll be there at 6 p.m. If I say I will call her, I call her. If I'm running late, I call to say I'm running late, because actions never lie and words don't mean shit. This is not sexy and exciting, this is doing the boring shit well. You must focus on what their behaviors look like in a year from now, 10 years, 20 years, and so on, because you're trying to write a life story, not a love story. Love stories are an experience and what feels good in the moment. That has no bearing on the compatibility with your ex or future partners, whereas a life story is placing more importance on compatibility and qualities. Compatibility is a focus on the alignment of values. Are you both working towards the same goals? Do you share a similar outlook on life? Can you resolve conflict in a way that improves intimacy? More on that coming up. That's the glue that holds a relationship together when the excitement fades. If you get this part wrong in the dating phase, the probability of a breakup is significantly higher. Bad habit number 2: avoiding difficult conversations. Another habit that secretly destroys relationships is avoiding difficult conversations. No one likes conflict, but avoiding it only leads to resentment and unresolved issues building up over time. Hard conversations are typically avoided because of loneliness or because you're scared of being wrong. The fear of loneliness is a big barrier to hard conversations because it could mean the end of the relationship. Many hold on to a shit relationship because they feel it's better than no relationship. Bringing up that small or big thing that is bothering you could also end the relationship. You may discover during the hard conversation that you and your partner have a fundamental incompatibility that you didn't screen for in the dating period, or maybe you did screen for it and ignored the red flag as discussed in habit 1. Or maybe you think what bothers you is silly to your partner, so you don't want to risk being wrong or sounding vulnerable. It could also be that the last time you tried to have a hard conversation with your ex, they were defensive and belittled you, and that's a terrifying place to be in a relationship. You may want to discuss how your partner handles money or something bigger like their lack of commitment to the future. Either way, when you avoid the hard talks, you are putting your relationship at risk. On the flip side, having the hard talks could also put the relationship at risk, or it could seriously test the foundations of it. They are scary, but hard conversations are the check-ins and the regular preventative maintenance required to keep it going. When done right, hard conversations nurture and propel intimacy to a whole new level. Hard conversations might feel uncomfortable. Scrap that, they are fucking uncomfortable. But facing those tough conversations head on can strengthen your relationship to no end. You can clear up misunderstandings and create a deeper level of trust. But how do you have a hard conversation? I have found keeping it simple is best. Make an agreement with your partner. Set the rules and conditions of a hard conversation before having one. Do this during the crossover period between dating and exclusivity. Agree to listen to understand and not to respond without getting defensive. Have a goal in mind so you can resolve the disagreement. Start the conversation with the aim not to get what you want, but to meet somewhere in the middle. After all, the art of compromise isn't to keep everyone happy, it is to ensure no one is miserable. Remember, it's not about winning an argument, it's about growing together, working through challenges as a team. The conversations and boundaries you have with your partner sets the conditions of the relationship. Without vulnerable communication, a relationship cannot last, at least not without it being incredibly toxic. Ain't nobody got time for that. Bad habit number 3: neglecting self-care. Here's one you probably didn't expect. Neglecting your own self-care. It sounds counterintuitive, but taking care of yourself is essential to maintaining a healthy relationship. When you don't prioritize your own well-being, whether it's physical, emotional, or mental health, you are not able to show up fully for your partner. Over time, this neglect turns into frustration, burnout, and resentment. Have you ever found yourself saying, "I gave everything to that relationship, I gave everything to them"? If you gave 110% to your ex, this likely contributed to the downfall of the relationship. But why is that? I'm so glad you asked. When your ex first met you, They likely saw an independent person who took care of their appearance, health, and friendships outside of the relationship. That shit is sexy. But when you get into a relationship, your world shrinks. There isn't anything necessarily wrong with that because a significant portion of your time and effort will go towards your partner. The mistake is giving all your time and effort to your ex, well, because that's not who they started dating, and that shit most certainly is not sexy. You must only give 50% of yourself to your romantic partner. You can and should put 100% effort behind that 50%, but if you keep nothing back for you, then what made you attractive in the beginning no longer exists. I feel more longing for my partner when she is busy or taking a trip with friends. I will have a few days of enjoying my solitude, but after a week or so, I cannot wait to see her, and it's the same with her for me. Neither of us are prepared to sacrifice what attracted the other because we're not prepared to sacrifice ourselves for the relationship. Make time for the things that recharge you, whether it's alone time, hobbies, or exercise. When you take care of yourself, you're more present and available in the relationship. Schedule in weekends apart. My partner and I do this roughly every 6 weeks. Self-care isn't selfish, it's essential. Bad habit number 4, keeping the score. One of the most toxic habits in a relationship is keeping score. You know, the I did this so you owe me that mentality. It might seem harmless, but keeping track of who's done more or who causes more arguments creates a competitive dynamic rather than a collaborative one. An eye for an eye, so to speak. Relationships aren't transactional, at least they shouldn't be, but many are in my experience. They are meant to be partnerships. If you are constantly tallying up who did more, who said what, or who started what 5 years ago, you are building resentment and damaging trust. Instead of focusing on who did what, focus on the bigger picture. Are you listening to understand rather than getting defensive and waiting for your turn to respond? Are you using I feel based statements in arguments rather than accusatory statements like you did this or you always do that? Are you actively listening? The legendary John Gottman, the godfather of healthy marriages and relationships, keeps a notebook on every complaint his wife has ever had throughout their marriage. This is so he can remain present and address the complaint with her rather than fighting against her. You must find ways for both of you to contribute that feels good for the relationship as a whole. You can do this by asking your partner, what can I do to make you feel better? What can I do to make you feel safe? Rather than making accusatory statements like, you always insert what was pissing you off here and change that for, I feel scared when you go quiet and don't talk to me. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, I feel unsafe in our relationship. The alternative is to say, you always make me feel scared when you're in a mood and you don't want to talk to me. You do this every single time and I hate it when you do it. See, that's the same message, but 2 vastly different methods of delivery. Which one do you feel will have the better outcome? Remember, it's about both partners giving 100% effort to the 50% you bring to the relationship. Let go of the scorecard and the accusatory statements, and you will create a healthier, more balanced and safe and loving dynamic. Bad habit number 5, taking each other for granted. Finally, one of the most destructive habits in relationships is taking each other for granted. Over time, it's easy to stop appreciating the little things your partner does. You get comfortable, and before you know it, that spark of gratitude fades. It's all too easy to get into the bad habit of, this is what I hate about my partner. Sadly, after nearly 1,000 Zoom coaching calls, I very seldom hear people say, these are the problems I didn't have with my ex-partner. Can you imagine how much healthier relationships would be if we focused on the problems we don't have when we are with someone? When you stop recognizing and appreciating your partner's efforts, it creates a gap in emotional intimacy. Your partner starts feeling unappreciated and the bond between you weakens. The solution? Make gratitude a daily habit. Even small acknowledgements go a long way in making your partner feel valued. A simple thank you or I appreciate you can make all the difference. I'm proud of you, or the way you put your outfit together is sexy. And lastly, tell your partner the problems you no longer have because of the relationship you have with them. I tell my partner regularly the peace she brings to that side of my life and how grateful I am for that. That goes a long way. By actively appreciating each other, you'll keep the connection strong and prevent the slow drift apart. So if you've recognized yourself in any of these habits or the relationships you've been in, don't worry. You're not alone. The first step to fixing them is simply becoming aware. By making small shifts like prioritizing compatibility, addressing issues head on, and showing appreciation, you can transform your relationship from fragile to rock solid. Don't let these hidden habits slowly destroy something as precious as your relationship. Make the changes now and watch the difference it can make. And lastly, if you're still struggling, there are some videos appearing on your screen that I think can help you. As always, you are enough. You're gonna be okay. Thank you for listening, and if you like the video, please hit like and subscribe and tell me what you think in the comments. I'll see you on the other side.